Hello, hello, hello. This is Christian, the chief editor from Gamereactor Germany, and I also will be running down my own personal game of the year, my top 5. Let's start with Firewatch. I'm pretty sure it's a game that will appear on few people's lists, and for a good reason. So it's a game that we would consider to be an FPX, sort of a first-person experience. It's about Henry and Delilah and them living in their watchtowers in a national park in the US, and it's just pretty much about that. Henry gets there after a pretty disturbing experience he had in his life, and then he spends his summer there trying to watch for fires and walking the national park. That's really about the game, but it's just very, very beautiful. It's a deep, easy, simple story, but yet it just gets you by the way it's been told. And I feel that some people might think it's boring or not necessary, but for me it was a pretty deep experience that I fundamentally enjoyed. On rank 4 there is not a specific game, but rather an experience as well. That's VR in general, so that includes HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, including the recently available touch controllers, and PlayStation VR, of course. It's still in their, the whole VR thing is still in their baby feet, baby steps, but you can really see that this is here to stay. So whatever people say that it is too expensive, too complicated, too whatever, they are correct at certain stages, but the whole experience in general is something that is really interesting and really adds something to gaming, or can potentially add something to gaming. Not everything is fine. There's a lot of trash out there, especially from games that are really not games but still being sold as games. But in general, everybody is doing a great job there, trying to be at the edge of something new. So if you are at all interested in gaming, you should try and experience VR with whatever device of the 3 I mentioned. Spot number 3 is reserved for Virginia. This is another indie game, if you want so. It's again a story and adventure. There's not really much you can do. It works because you really develop certain feelings towards the characters. It's a police FBI story about people that go missing. You cannot really tell anything about the story without spoiling it, so you just go ahead and play it for yourself. I can really recommend this. It's also a beautiful art style and weird and obscure enough to keep you entertained throughout the whole experience. Number 2, that's gonna be Forza Horizon 3 on the Xbox One exclusively, and the PC, of course. And this is probably the game I enjoyed the most in terms of just switching the console on and playing for 30 minutes, or wanting to play for 30 minutes and then ending up playing 3 hours plus, because it just gets you. The whole Australia setting is really bright and colorful, and that's what you need when you sit in like grey Berlin in the winter and want to escape and do something that you cannot do in real life. And that's also for me fundamentally what video games are about. They give you another world to be in, and this is really a world I like to be in, driving supercars at high speeds and doing crazy stuff that you couldn't do in real life. It's just probably the most feel-good game that 2016 produced. The number one spot is again an indie game, one from Denmark. So How to Play That Inside made it to the number one spot for me because it's probably the game that that grabbed my heart the most. Just because it's so silently trying to convince you about saving that boy's life that you are playing, and he's trying to escape from something. You don't really know what it is. You just have the feeling that something really, really bad is going on, and throughout the game that you play, you are running away, and at the very end you will realize that that there is quite a deep meaning to it. And again, you cannot really spoil it. You have to play it. There's a couple of little clever puzzles involved coming to the end. It's not a very long game, but it gets you by just being spot on in terms of gameplay. The character doesn't spend a single word, is not talking, there's not a lot of action or stress. It's a really mellow, really grey, black and white, sometimes dark experience, but I just really, really enjoyed the hell out of it. So if you haven't played it, I'm sure many of you have, do it. Inside, my game of the year 2016.